birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Tamara. Happy birthday to you.
I am sorry for what I have done, but she deserved it. These were the cold, calculated words Aubrey Padi spoke to emergency services after brutally murdering his estranged wife, Tamara Potty, in the early hours of July 7, 2021, while their daughter slept nearby. Aubrey executed a meticulously planned attack that would forever change multiple lives. He had hidden inside her home, set an alarm on his phone to wake himself at 3:30 in the morning, and brought with him a collection of weapons, a hammer, 2 knives, gloves, a metal exercise bar, and cord. This wasn't a crime of passion. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. This was premeditated. This was calculated. The emergency call that followed a savage attack revealed not remorse, but justification. A man who believed he had the right to take his wife's life because she had disrespected him. What makes the murder of Tamara Potty particularly disturbing is the level of planning involved. Aubrey didn't just snap. He orchestrated every detail. After their separation in February 2021, his behavior grew increasingly controlling. The night before the murder, he punched Tamara in the face when she refused to give him access to her phone. Hours later, he sent her a text message that would prove prophetic. "This is the last time you had disrespected me." When Tamara returned home from a night care visit with a colleague around 1:30 in the morning, she had no idea her estranged husband was hiding inside. As she slept, Aubrey emerged from his hiding place, first attacking her with a metal exercise bar, then stabbing her 8 times, all while their children slept in the adjacent room. The brutality of this attack shocked even seasoned detectives of Greater Manchester Police, who described it as one of the most calculated domestic murders they had encountered. Tamara Potty was far more than a victim of domestic violence. Born in Butterworth, Eastern Cape, South Africa, she was a woman of remarkable determination and achievement. After relocating to the United Kingdom in 2004 with Aubrey, Tamara worked tirelessly to build a better life, eventually earning a master's degree in law while raising 2 daughters. A successful businesswoman who co-founded Greenleaf Health and Social Care Ltd., Tamara was known by friends and family as loving, devoted, resilient, and fiercely protective of her children. Her life was defined not by how it ended, but by the strength and ambition that characterized her journey. What would you do if you noticed a friend's partner checking their phone constantly, monitoring their whereabouts, or becoming increasingly controlling? Would you recognize these as potential warning signs of domestic abuse? Or would you dismiss them as relationship problems that aren't your business? The tragedy of Tamara Potty's story is that there were warning signs: escalating control, invasion of privacy, and ultimately physical violence. If you're finding this story compelling so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to Explosive True Crime Stories, where we not only share these important stories, but also provide insights that could potentially save lives. Let me know in the comments if you've ever witnessed these warning signs. Tamara Potty's story begins in Butterworth, a small town in South Africa's Eastern Cape province. Born into a country still grappling with the legacy of apartheid, Tamara spent her formative years between Butterworth and Khayelitsha, a township near Cape Town. From an early age, those who knew her described a young woman with extraordinary determination and a clear vision for her future. Growing up in post-apartheid South Africa presented both challenges and opportunities. For ambitious young people like Tamara, the newly democratic nation offered possibilities that previous generations could only dream of. Yet economic realities remained harsh for many Black South Africans. Despite these obstacles, Tamara developed a reputation for her resilience and work ethic. Friends from her youth recall a woman who spoke often about creating better opportunities, not just for herself, but for her future family. Education became her pathway forward, and she pursued it with unwavering focus, viewing it as the key to transcending the limitations of her circumstances. Tamara's path crossed with Aubrey Paddy's in South Africa during the early 2000s. Aubrey, originally from Pretoria, had established himself with a respectable position in the South African Navy. Their initial meeting sparked what appeared to be a promising relationship, two ambitious individuals with complementary goals and shared dreams of building a prosperous future. Those who knew the couple in their early days described a relationship marked by mutual respect and shared ambition. Aubrey presented himself as supportive of Tamara's educational aspirations, and together they began planning a life that would maximize opportunities for themselves and their future family. The courtship progressed quickly, culminating in marriage, a union that would last 14 years and produce two daughters, Tia and Mia. On the surface, their relationship embodied the post-apartheid South African dream: upward mobility, professional success, and the freedom to pursue opportunities previously denied to Black South Africans. In 2004, Tamara and Aubrey made the life-changing decision to relocate to the United Kingdom. Like many immigrants, they were drawn by the promise of expanded opportunities, better economic prospects, and the chance to provide their children with advantages they hadn't experienced growing up in South Africa. The transition wasn't easy. Moving thousands of miles from their support network, navigating a new culture, and establishing themselves professionally required tremendous resilience. Initially settling in Greater Manchester, the couple faced the typical challenges of immigrants: securing appropriate housing, finding employment, and building new social connections. Despite these hurdles, Tamara approached their new life with characteristic determination. She quickly recognized that their success in the UK would depend on further education and professional development. While maintaining family responsibilities and working to support their household, Tamara began exploring educational opportunities that would allow her to build a career with long-term stability and growth potential. Tamara's pursuit of education while balancing work and family responsibilities demonstrated her exceptional drive. She enrolled in university courses, ultimately earning a master's degree in law, an achievement that represented countless hours of study, sacrifice, and perseverance. Her academic success was all the more remarkable considering she accomplished it while raising two young daughters and working to support her family. With her advanced education, Tamara positioned herself for professional success. Together with Aubrey, she co-founded Greenleaf Health and Social Care Ltd., a company providing essential care services to vulnerable adults. The business reflected Tamara's compassionate nature and her desire to create meaningful impact in her community. Colleagues described Tamara as meticulous, ethical, and deeply committed to her clients' well-being. Her business grew steadily, establishing her as a respected entrepreneur in the healthcare sector. Behind the facade of professional success and family stability, Tamara and Aubrey's marriage had begun to fracture. Friends later revealed that tensions had been building for years, though Tamara, private by nature, rarely discussed her marital difficulties. The couple who had once shared ambitious dreams found themselves growing increasingly distant, their goals and values diverging in significant ways. By early 2021, the situation had deteriorated beyond repair. In February of that year, after 14 years of marriage, Tamara made the difficult decision to separate from Aubrey. She moved with their daughters, Tia and Mia, to a new home on Lake Road in Stalybridge, Tameside, seeking a fresh start and the space to rebuild their lives independently. Despite the breakdown of their personal relationship, Tamara attempted to maintain a cordial connection with Aubrey for their daughter's sake. They continued to operate their joint business, Greenleaf Health and Social Care Ltd., presenting a united professional front even as their marriage dissolved. This arrangement required regular contact and communication, a situation that would later prove dangerous. For Tamara, the separation represented not just the end of her marriage, but a reclaiming of her independence. She focused on creating stability for her daughters during this transition, ensuring their routines remained as normal as possible despite the significant changes in their family structure. What she couldn't have known was how dangerously Aubrey would react to this assertion of her autonomy. Following the separation, Aubrey's behavior underwent a disturbing transformation. What began as occasional disagreements evolved into a pattern of surveillance and control that left Tamara increasingly uncomfortable. Though they maintained a business relationship and co-parenting arrangement, Aubrey seemed unable to accept the personal boundaries Tamara had established. Tamara confided in close friends that Aubrey had begun monitoring her communications. She discovered he had been secretly accessing her voicemails and attempting to track her whereabouts and conversations. When confronted about these invasions of privacy, Aubrey would alternate between denial, justification, and brief periods of improved behavior before resuming his surveillance. The business they continued to operate together became another avenue for control. Colleagues noticed Aubrey questioning Tamara's decisions more aggressively, undermining her authority, and creating unnecessary friction in their professional interactions. These workplace tensions added another layer of stress to Tamara's already challenging situation. Most concerning was Aubrey's refusal to accept that the marriage was truly over. He would make unannounced visits to Tamara's new home, sometimes under the pretext of seeing their daughters. Other times, he would appear at places he knew Tamara would be, creating uncomfortable encounters that left her feeling watched and unsafe. Despite Tamara's increasingly firm boundaries, Aubrey seemed determined to maintain his presence in every aspect of her life. The day before her murder, the escalating pattern of control reached a critical point. Aubrey confronted Tamara, demanding access to her mobile phone. When she refused, asserting a basic boundary of privacy, he responded with physical violence, punching her in the face. This assault marked a dangerous escalation from psychological control to physical abuse. Following this violent encounter, Aubrey sent Tamara a series of text messages that oscillated between apology and threat. One message stood out for its ominous tone. "This is the last time you had disrespected me." The language of disrespect revealed Aubrey's fundamental belief that Tamara's independence constituted a personal affront to him, a mindset common among abusers who view their partners as possessions rather than autonomous individuals. Friends later reported that Tamara had described Aubrey's behavior as increasingly creepy in the weeks before her death. She had begun taking additional precautions, varying her routine, and being more careful about sharing her whereabouts. Yet, like many victims of domestic abuse, she may have underestimated the danger she faced, particularly as Aubrey had no documented history of serious violence prior to their separation. The combination of controlling behavior, invasion of privacy, verbal threats, and the recent physical assault created a volatile situation that experts recognize as high risk for lethal violence, especially during the period following separation, when abusers often feel they are losing control. If you've been following Tamara's story so far, you might be recognizing some warning signs that appear in many abusive relationships. Have you ever witnessed a friend's partner monitoring their phone, isolating them from friends, or becoming increasingly controlling after a breakup? These behaviors aren't just jealousy or passion. They're dangerous red flags. Take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe if you want to learn more about recognizing these warning signs. Share this video with someone who might need this information. In the comments, tell me, what's one warning sign of domestic abuse you think more people should know about? Your insight could help someone in danger. The murder of Tamara Potty was not an impulsive act, but the culmination of careful, calculated planning. On July 7, 2021, Aubrey Padi executed a plan that demonstrated both premeditation and a disturbing level of determination. Earlier that day, while Tamara was away from her home on Lake Road in Stalybridge, Aubrey gained entry to the property, bringing with him an arsenal of weapons and tools. His preparation was thorough and chilling. Aubrey arrived equipped with a hammer, 2 knives, a pair of gloves, a metal exercise bar, and a length of cord. Each item had been deliberately selected and transported to the scene, evidence of his intent that would later prove damning in court. Once inside, rather than immediately seeking confrontation, Aubrey concealed himself within the home and waited. Understanding that Tamara would likely return late due to her work schedule, Aubrey set an alarm on his mobile phone. This calculated decision allowed him to rest while ensuring he would awaken at the optimal moment for his attack, when Tamara would be asleep and vulnerable. He positioned himself where he wouldn't be discovered, patiently waiting for hours. The level of planning revealed a man who had moved beyond threats and control to deadly intent. Each element of his preparation, from weapon selection to timing, demonstrated a cold, deliberate approach to violence that prosecutors would later describe as one of the most calculated domestic murders they had encountered. Unaware of the danger waiting in her home, Tamara Potty spent the evening of July 6, 2021, doing what she had dedicated her life to, caring for others. As part of her work with Greenleaf Health and Social Care, She conducted night care visits to vulnerable clients alongside a colleague. The evening was routine, with no indication of the horror that would follow. Around 1:30 in the morning on July 7th, Tamara returned to her home on Lake Road. She wasn't alone. Her colleague had accompanied her and was planning to stay overnight. This unexpected guest would later become a crucial witness, though her presence did nothing to deter Aubrey from his murderous plan. After arriving home, Tamara and her colleague settled in for the night. The colleague made herself comfortable in the downstairs living room, while Tamara headed upstairs to her bedroom. In the adjacent room, one of Tamara's daughters slept peacefully. The house grew quiet as Tamara, exhausted from her work, fell asleep, completely unaware of Aubrey's presence in her home. These ordinary final hours, a working mother returning home, preparing for rest before another day of responsibilities, stand in stark contrast to the violence that was about to unfold. Tamara went to sleep that night, as she had countless others, with no reason to suspect that her estranged husband was lying in wait, counting down the minutes until his alarm would sound. At 3:30 in the morning, Aubrey's alarm broke the silence of the sleeping household. He rose from his hiding place and moved with purpose toward Tamara's bedroom. The weapons he had brought with him were now within reach as he prepared to attack his estranged wife while she slept. A moment of extreme vulnerability. Aubrey's first strike came with the metal exercise bar. He brought it down on Tamara with tremendous force as she lay sleeping, causing immediate and severe injuries. The sudden attack jolted Tamara from sleep into a nightmare of violence. Despite being caught completely off guard, Tamara fought desperately for her life. The bedroom, once a place of rest and safety, became the scene of a frantic struggle as she attempted to defend herself against the brutal assault. Tamara's screams echoed through the house, piercing enough to wake her colleague sleeping downstairs and loud enough that they should have alerted neighbors. Yet the attack continued relentlessly. When Tamara's resistance proved stronger than Aubrey had anticipated, he escalated the violence. He reached for one of the knives he had brought and began stabbing her repeatedly. The medical examiner would later document 8 distinct stab wounds on Tamara's body. Each thrust of the knife demonstrated Aubrey's determination to end her life, regardless of her desperate attempts to survive. The attack was not just lethal but excessive, continuing well beyond what would have been necessary to cause death. This excessive violence spoke to the rage and determination driving Aubrey's actions. Throughout this horrific attack, Tamara's daughter remained asleep in the adjacent bedroom, mercifully unaware of the violence being inflicted on her mother just feet away. The colleague downstairs, however, had been awakened by Tamara's screams and was about to become a witness to the aftermath of this brutal crime, a witness whose testimony would prove crucial in bringing Aubrey to justice. Awakened by Tamara's screams, her colleague rushed upstairs to find a scene of horror. She witnessed Aubrey attempting to flee through the front door, but in a moment that revealed his true callousness, he turned back, went upstairs again, and inflicted more stab wounds on Tamara. As he finally left the property, he coldly instructed the colleague to call 999. Emergency services responded quickly to the distress call. Paramedics found Tamara grievously wounded and rushed her to hospital, fighting desperately to save her life. Despite their best efforts, Tamara's injuries proved fatal. She was pronounced dead shortly after arrival, leaving behind 2 daughters who had slept through their mother's murder. Greater Manchester Police responded to the scene at Lake Road with their major incident team, led by Detective Inspector Lee Shaw. The investigation began immediately, with officers securing the crime scene while others launched a manhunt for Aubrey Padi, who had fled after the attack. The first critical piece of evidence came from Aubrey himself, a call to emergency services in which he confessed to the killing and chillingly stated that Tamara deserved it. Despite his confession, police conducted a thorough and methodical investigation. They knew that building an airtight case would be essential to securing justice for Tamara and her daughters. Forensic teams meticulously processed the home, documenting blood spatter patterns, collecting fingerprints, and gathering the weapons Aubrey had brought to the scene. Investigators interviewed multiple witnesses, including Tamara's colleague, who had been present during the attack. Her testimony provided crucial details about the sequence of events and Aubrey's behavior immediately following the murder. Officers also spoke with neighbors, family members, and colleagues to establish a timeline of the relationship breakdown and document any previous incidents of threatening or controlling behavior. Digital evidence became another focus of the investigation. Detectives obtained and analyzed phone records, revealing the threatening messages Aubrey had sent to Tamara in the days before her murder. They also recovered Aubrey's phone, which contained evidence of his planning, including the alarm he had set to wake himself for the attack. The physical evidence against Aubrey mounted quickly. Forensic teams recovered the murder weapon, one of the knives Aubrey had brought, under a car near the property. It bore both Tamara's blood and Aubrey's fingerprints, creating an irrefutable link between him and the crime. The metal exercise bar used in the initial attack also carried traces of Tamara's blood and hair, confirming the sequence of the assault. The autopsy results further strengthened the case, revealing the extent of Tamara's injuries. The medical examiner documented 8 stab wounds, alongside blunt force trauma, consistent with the metal bar. These findings aligned perfectly with the witness testimony and Aubrey's own confession. Perhaps most damning was the evidence of premeditation. The collection of weapons Aubrey had brought, his method of gaining entry to the home, hiding inside, and setting an alarm all pointed to careful planning rather than a spontaneous act. This evidence would prove crucial in establishing first-degree murder charges, as it demonstrated both intent and premeditation, the hallmarks of the most serious category of homicide. The trial of Aubrey Padi began at Manchester Crown Court in September 2021, just months after Tamara's murder. Facing overwhelming evidence, Aubrey pleaded guilty to the murder charge, eliminating the need for a lengthy trial that would have further traumatized Tamara's family, particularly her daughters. Despite his guilty plea, Aubrey's defense team attempted to mitigate his sentence by suggesting diminished responsibility. They argued that the breakdown of the marriage had affected his mental state, causing him to act out of character. This defense strategy quickly collapsed under scrutiny, as the prosecution presented evidence of Aubrey's calculated planning and clear intent. The prosecution painted a compelling picture of a controlling man who could not accept his wife's independence. They emphasized the premeditated nature of the crime, the weapons brought to the scene, the alarm set on his phone, and his deliberate concealment in the home. Each element demonstrated not impaired judgment, but calculated malice, undermining any claim of diminished capacity or momentary loss of control. On September 27, 2021, Judge Elizabeth Nichols delivered her sentencing decision. Her remarks were unequivocal in their condemnation of Aubrey's actions, which she described as coldly calculating and brutal. The judge emphasized that Aubrey had not only taken Tamara's life, but had deprived 2 young girls of their mother. No woman should have to endure at the hands of a man what Tamara did in her final hours, Judge Nichols stated, her words resonating throughout the courtroom. She sentenced Aubrey Padi to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 23 years before eligibility for parole, ensuring he would remain behind bars well into his 60s. The most profound victims of Aubrey's violence were Tamara's daughters, Tia and Mia. In a single night, they lost not only their mother to murder, but also their father to prison, effectively orphaned in a foreign country far from their extended family in South Africa. Tia, the elder daughter, faced the additional cruelty of celebrating her 16th birthday shortly after her mother's death, a milestone that should have been joyful but was instead shadowed by unimaginable grief. The immediate aftermath brought practical challenges alongside emotional trauma. Questions arose about who would care for the girls, with initial arrangements placing them with a family friend. However, concerns persisted about their long-term welfare, including the possibility they might end up in an orphanage without proper intervention from extended family. The girls faced not only the psychological burden of their mother's violent death, but also profound uncertainty about their future. Child psychologists involved in the case noted that traumatic bereavement of this nature, where one parent kills another, creates uniquely complex grief. The daughters were forced to reconcile their love for both parents with the horrific reality of what had occurred. Their grief process was complicated by conflicting emotions, mourning their mother while grappling with their father's betrayal, anger, and the public nature of the crime that took their mother's life. The practical realities of daily life also changed dramatically. Their home, once a place of safety, had become the scene of their mother's murder. Their routines, previously anchored by Tamara's loving presence, were suddenly disrupted. School performance, social relationships, and their sense of security all suffered in the wake of this devastating loss. Extended family members in both the United Kingdom and South Africa were devastated by Tamara's murder. Her relatives in South Africa faced the additional anguish of distance, unable to immediately travel to support the girls or participate in funeral arrangements due to pandemic travel restrictions and financial constraints. This geographical separation compounded their sense of helplessness in the face of such tragedy. A family spokesperson described their collective heartbreak. Tamara was the backbone of this family, a daughter and sister whose strength inspired us all. Her children were her world, and now they must navigate life without her guidance. The family launched efforts to secure the girl's future, working through legal and immigration complexities to determine the best arrangements for their care and well-being. Tamara's siblings shared memories of her determination and resilience, qualities they promised to help nurture in her daughters. Though Tamara's life was cut short, one sister stated, "Her legacy lives on in Tia and Mia. We are committed to ensuring they grow up knowing how extraordinary their mother was, her achievements, her courage, and her boundless love for them." The murder of Tamara Potty sent shockwaves through the Stalybridge community and beyond. Neighbors who had known the family expressed disbelief that such violence had occurred on their quiet residential street. Local businesses where Tamara had been a regular customer shared memories of her warmth and professionalism, with many establishing memorial collections to support her daughters. Domestic violence advocacy groups in Greater Manchester used the case to highlight the heightened dangers women face when leaving abusive relationships. Candlelight vigils drew hundreds of participants, standing in solidarity with Tamara's memory and all victims of domestic violence. These gatherings became spaces not only for mourning, but for education about the warning signs of abuse and available resources for those at risk. The healthcare community where Tamara had built her career also responded with grief and support. Colleagues from Greenleaf Health and Social Care established a memorial fund for her daughter's education, ensuring that Tamara's commitment to learning would continue through them. She believed deeply in the power of education to transform lives. One colleague remarked, "We want to honor that belief by supporting her daughter's future studies." Tamara's tragic story highlights several warning signs that often precede lethal domestic violence. Controlling behaviors, like Aubrey's monitoring of Tamara's phone and communications, frequently escalate after separation. Other red flags include jealousy framed as love, isolation from friends and family, and making threats when feeling disrespected. Physical violence, even a single incident like Aubrey punching Tamara, often intensifies over time rather than remaining an isolated event. Perhaps most critical is understanding that the period immediately following separation is statistically the most dangerous time for victims of domestic abuse. When abusers feel they're losing control, their behavior can escalate rapidly from controlling to deadly, as Tamara's case tragically demonstrates. If you recognize these warning signs in your relationship or someone else's, resources are available. National domestic violence hotlines offer confidential support, safety planning, and connections to local services. Many communities have emergency shelters that provide immediate safe housing and legal advocacy to secure protective orders. When leaving an abusive relationship, working with professionals to create a detailed safety plan is crucial. This might include changing locks, varying routines, informing trusted neighbors, and documenting all concerning behavior. Remember that domestic violence organizations can help navigate the complex legal, housing, and emotional challenges of leaving safely. No one should face this journey alone. Trained advocates stand ready to help at any hour. If this story has impacted you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Explosive True Crime Stories. Your support helps us continue sharing these important narratives that could potentially save lives. Share this video with someone who might benefit from understanding these warning signs. You never know who might need this information. I'd like to hear from you in the comments. What would you do if you suspected a friend or family member was experiencing domestic abuse? How would you approach the conversation? Your insights might help others recognize when and how to intervene. Together, we can turn these tragic stories into life-saving lessons for our communities.